Welcome to Mallet Unchained, where we explore and question everything and magnify truth. Today, I will be reading from my newest book, available on Amazon, The Scroll of the Beast, Chapter 39, The Great White Throne Judgment. Then I saw a great white throne and him who was seated on it. From his presence, earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. Revelation 20, verse 1. The throne appears, the heavens split, and Miriam beheld it. A throne vast and white, blazing with purity, consuming shadow. Its size defied imagination. Higher than mountains, wider than the oceans, deeper than galaxies. It seemed not only to sit in creation, but to swallow creation whole. Its whiteness was not sterile, but alive, white like snow, catching every crystal of dawn, white like diamonds, fractured into infinite fire, white like flame, burning every impurity to ash. Upon it sat one whose presence ended all pretense. His face blazed like lightning storms, too radiant to study, yet impossible to turn from. His eyes pierced eternity, dividing thought from motive, marrow from bone, truth from lie. His robe flowed like rivers of flame, his voice like stars collapsing, and yet like still water over stone. Ha ha! At his presence earth fled, mountains melted, seas drained, skies unraveled, galaxies folded into sparks, constellations scattered like ash. Time itself recoiled as if unworthy to remain. Nothing stood but the throne and him who sat upon it. Daniel had seen it. The Ancient of Days took his seat. His throne was flames of fire, its wheels burning. Whoo! Now it burned before Miriam's eyes, harsher than thunder, more beautiful than sunrise. She fell, trembling, her knees buckled as if gravity itself had multiplied. Her children clung to her arms, burying their faces in her robe. Abigail whispered, voice like dust on wind, "Mama, is this God?" Miriam's tears streamed, her lips trembled. "Yes, child, this is God." The dead stand. Then the dead stood before the throne, kings and beggars, emperors and slaves, generals and children, martyrs robed in white, beside tyrants in rags. None absent, none exempt. The seas surrendered their dead skeletons, rose from trenches in the Atlantic. Titanic passengers stepped dripping from wrecks, coral slipping from their bones as they formed. Cemeteries cracked open. Mausoleums groaned. Dust coiled into sinew, sinew into flesh, and flesh into radiant bodies. Grasping first breath, ash scattered to the four winds, drew together in the living form. The sound was unbearable. Woo! Bones snapping into sockets, lungs filling, billions gasping as one. The smell of the earth salt, iron, and ozone mingled with the tang of rain. Woo! Pharaohs who once claimed divinity now stood trembling besides the slave they had whipped. Caesars in purple now shoulder to shoulder with peasants they had taxed. Holocaust victims rising beside their executioners. Prisoners from gulags besides generals who had condemned them. Woo! Artists, prophets, addicts, shepherds, janitors, and kings. The tide of humanity without end, Miriam whispered through choked breath. The world has never stood so equal. Silence fell, heavier than thunder. No excuses, no arguments, only souls exposed before the judge. It is appointed unto man once to die, and after this, the judgment. The books opened. Then came the books. Ha ha. Ooh, there's higher than mountains, pages rippling with memory like rivers of fire. Every thought, every word, every deed inscribed. No edits, no erasures, no secrets. Another book opened, the book of life. Unlike the rest, it breathed. Its words pulsed like veins. Names glowed like embers. Songs hummed from parchment. Miriam felt its vibration in her chest like a second heartbeat. The judge's voice thundered. The dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. Even death and Hades staggered forward, cloaked in shadow, crowns of rust on their brows. They hissed defiance. We are not finished. The grave still holds. But their boast shriveled before the throne. Miriam's sins rose like smoke in her memory. Sharp words, hidden pride, fear. They choked her. She whispered, "Mercy, Lord, mercy in the Lamb." The pages turned, stories unfolded, names were called, infants and children. A woman sobbed as her stillborn child was placed in her arms. Radiant and laughing, her tears turned to laughter that shook her whole body. Their names are written from the foundation of the world. The judge proclaimed. A boy who had died in famine ran into his mother's embrace, clutching bread that never spoiled. She kissed his hair again and again. Abigail clutched Miriam's hand. "Mama, even the babies." "Yes, child," Miriam whispered. "Even the babies are his." Oh, thank you, Yeshua. The never-reached tribes. A man from the Amazon, barefoot, eyes wide, lifted his face. All his life he had prayed to the sky. "Father," the judge said, "he sought me in the starlight. His name I wrote in light." Woo! An Intuit woman who painted prayers on cave walls now stood clothed in linen. Every brushstroke had been counted. A Mongolian shepherd who once asked, "Who made the wind?" now heard the Maker's voice. "I did, and I knew you." Ooh, people we didn't expect. The broken who whispered. A prisoner in the Siberian gulag who once prayed, God, if you are there, now stood, radiant, chains shattered. A teenager from Auschwitz, lips cracked by psalms whispered in the dark, now sing them in blazing light. A heroin addict from New York who had muttered, help me, with his last breath, now stood robed in white. The Lamb had heard every final word. The misunderstood healers, a woman branded by the church as a witch, now shone with healing light. On earth she had crushed herbs to soothe fevers. Heaven saw her gift, not man's fears. Cast out by his people, she stood radiant. He had sought harmony with creation, and the Lamb had seen the bent heart. Miriam trembled. We called them sorcerers. He calls them healers. Elena nodded, tears streaming. The branded outsiders, a soldier mocked as an atheist had whispered with his last breath, God, if you are there. His name blazed in the book, a slave forbidden to pray, but who cried silently to the stars, now stood free, crowned in glory. A silenced woman who sang prayers alone in her room now stood in linen, her private songs revealed as incense before the throne. The overlooked saints, a janitor who prayed as he swept empty halls, now stood radiant, his whispers inscribed in eternity. A mother who sang hymns over laundry in poverty, now robed in white, her songs counted as psalms. A beggar who had whispered, thank you for bread, now walks streets of gold. Miriam's awe. Miriam clutched her children. Tears burned her cheeks. We never knew, but he saw. Abigail whispered, even the forgotten ones? Miriam nodded, especially the forgotten ones. Judgment rendered pages turned. Some names blazed like suns, voices erupting in hallelujahs. Others faded to ash, their cries silenced in flame. Those not found in the book of life were cast into the lake of fire. Not candle flame, but oceans of judgment, swallowing crowns, banners, and empires whole. Death and Hades himself were seized. Skeletal kings dragged screaming into fire. Their reign ended, their sting broken. He will swallow up death forever, Isaiah had promised. Paul had echoed, O death, where is thy sting? Now the promise was fulfilled. The judge lifted his hand and thundered, behold, I make all things new. Benediction. Miriam gathered her children. Abigail asked, Mama, will our names be there? Miriam's tears burned. If we belong to the Lamb, our names are already written. Levi whispered, then the Lamb keeps us. Yes, Miriam said, the Lamb keeps us forever. The throne blazed, the books closed, silence fell, not empty, but holy, the silence before eternity. Salah. Woo! Mallet Unchained, baby. Okay.